President Bola Tinubu has kicked off the construction of the first phase of the 1,350 megawatts Gwagwalada Independent Power Plant project to earn Nigeria between $700 and $800 million every year. The power plant, when completed, will generate an average of 10.3 million megawatts per hour of electricity every year for sale to Nigerian Bulk Electricity Trading PLC. Energy correspondent Georgina Undukwe Ezayinka has more.
The Gwagwalada Independent Power Plant will be developed on a 54.7 hectares of land in Gwagwalada area, a satellite town on the outskirts of the Federal Capital Territory, Abuja. Now, this project will be co-financed by NNPC Limited and its partners, General Electric and the China Machinery Engineering Corps, and with a combination of a debt equity sharing ratio of 70-30. Now, according to NNPC Limited, the project has a combined cycle of 3 powertrain blocks of 450 megawatts each, 2 gas turbines, 2 heat recovery and steam generators, and 1 steam turbine, and can generate 10.3 million megawatts per hour of electricity every year. This groundbreaking ceremony, carried out by President Bola Ahmed Tinubu alongside the Group Chief Executive Officer of the Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited, as well as other dignitaries, signals the commencement of the construction of the Gwagwalada Independent Power Plant project. This project is driven by the need to use gas as additional energy to increase Nigeria's power generation capacity. The NNPC Limited says this is in fulfillment of the federal government's target of adding 5 gigawatts of electricity to the national grid by 2024.
Currently, NNPC and partners are delivering about 800 megawatts to the national grid from Afan 6 and Okpai Phase 1 thermal power plants with combined installed capacity of 1,100 megawatts. We have also completed Okpai Phase 2 project that will add additional 320 megawatts of power to the national grid, and progressing with other plant projects across the country, including those along the AKK pipeline corridor.
The project will generate thousands of employment opportunities for the Nigerian youth, with youth in the FCT and Gwagwalada area, its catchment area, being the first beneficiary.
As this power project takes shape, it will not only create opportunities for engineers, artisans, laborers, and expatriate staff or non-expatriate or unskilled staff, but even for the market woman that will come here to sell her food.
With the projected addition of 1,550 megawatts to the national grid, President Bola Tinubu says this is what is needed to deepen domestic gas utilization, expand power generation capacity.
This administration is equally poised to address all power value chain challenges and reduce the power-related hardship being experienced by too many of our citizens. Through such investment, we shall harness the over 200 trillion cubic feet of proven natural gas, all the reserves within our borders, to develop our national infrastructure, create millions of new jobs and opportunities, and stimulate economic growth in a rapid manner.
Bringing affordable power close to its users, increasing capacity for access to energy in our country, which we all know that about 50% of our countrymen don't have access to clean energy, to energy that they can rely on. So this is a pathway to that delivery. And Mr. President's promise is to bring hope to this country. And one of the biggest hope we can bring to people is to give them energy sufficiency. And we know this project will be delivered. 3 years will be 3 years.
The President welcomes the recent partnership between NNPC Limited and NIPCO Gas Limited to drive the use of compressed natural gas as alternative fuel for vehicles.
The landmark collaboration will expand Nigerian CNG infrastructure, improve access to CNG, and accelerate the adoption of a cheaper and cleaner alternative fuel for buses, cars, and keke napep.
The 1,350 megawatts Gwagwalada Independent Power Project is in phases. The first phase capacity is 350 megawatts. The power plant will receive gas through the Ajaokuta-Kaduna-Kano gas pipeline project, which is currently being constructed. Georgina Ndukwezainka, Arise News.
Let's bring in oil and gas expert Olabode Sowunmi to have an overview of this development. Thank you, Olabode, for joining us on Newsnight.
Thank you. The pleasure is mine.
Yes, it sounds really exciting. 1,300, over 300 megawatts, and IPP. You know, but a lot of people may not be familiar with the effectiveness of an IPP. Speak to us about which areas this IPP would serve when completed.
Okay, basically, IPP means independent power plant, which is being done by an independent person, which is independent of the existing system. Basically, limited government intervention in it. But the truth be told, whether it be an IPP, whether it be legacy systems, is that power is being generated. Yeah. That power that is being generated is expected to serve the people and the community, which means that if you were to start an industry, it could be a cottage industry to even produce fruit juice, for example. You don't have to be investing in generators because you believe that power will be made available within that catchment area. So irrespective of what it is, if they are able to inject that amount of power into the Nigerian grid and get it delivered that is distributed to the end user, that will be a new dawn in Nigeria. Even for this alone, if we're able to effectively maximize what has happened. But it's early days. It is cautious optimism, but it is reason for optimism, but we should be cautious primarily because the AKK2, we need to pay attention on it. That's where the gas is going to come from. And more importantly, is that once the power is built and is distributed, we're going to, we should have a lot of reasons to smile.
But yet again, some would say that we're still complaining we don't have enough supply, but we're actually providing electricity to other countries. So some still don't get the logic behind this arrangement. Speak to us about the reasoning behind this arrangement.
So, first of all, power wasn't always this bad. One of the challenges is to understand how we got into where we got to, and is the fact that there are increments every year, which is going to be based on figures. One of the figures that you use for that is actually our census, and but the planning that was required and the incremental capacity that was required to be built was not touched throughout the 80s. So you had a decade, in fact, 80s and 90s. So you had 2 decades, 20 years, where there was no infrastructure being built and people continued to grow. But however, before that time, we had covenant relationships, involved with legal covenant relationships with Niger Republic and those nations to provide electricity. And it was also based on the understanding that in the early days, 80% to 90% of our electricity came through the Kanji dams, the hydro dams. Now, most of the River Niger actually passes through Niger Republic. And we are Niger to also dam the water and build a dam and build their own power plant. We will not have sufficient water in our own dams to run the turbines. So the understanding was that given that whatever they needed to do was for power purposes, why don't we make available percentage of the power being generated for them? And so there are legal covenants, there are obligations that we must do, which had happened over the years.
Interesting. That's amazing. Now, the remarkable part of it, which I know an average audience is waiting to hear now, is how this would impact SMEs when these IPP is added to what we have currently.
Okay, basically to make power available. So if you take the average SME, those within 5 to 20 million in terms of turnover, most of them will tell you that close to half of their operational cost comes from power. So whether it be the fast food restaurant, the barber shop, you know, all those kind of guys, they'll tell you that power accounts for a lot of things. So were it to be that they don't have to buy diesel, they don't have to buy the generator, they don't have to service it, and they put all of that cost within what can be AEDC, that there will be reduction in the operational cost, which will mean more profit to them. So in an ideal world, that's what we should be expecting for the SMEs. Because power in itself is not going to teach somebody how to do business. But because people need to actually understand and analyze their limitations so that they don't blame everything on government. It's easy to blame everything on governance. Yeah, but it's not everything that is governance fault. What power will do is to make work easy. But if you don't know how to do business, you just don't know how to do it. So it will reduce the cost of operations, and that's precisely what it will do.
Now, this is coming at such a time when the debate keeps going on about the increment in the electricity tariff. Will this addition impact cost in any way?
I doubt. Because, I mean, it's not difficult to see. So the cost, the tariff, is computed via a formula called the MITO, multi-year tariff order. So, and that MITO computation includes a number of parameters, one of which is gas, which in this case, the power plant is using gas. So there's a cost to that gas. And that cost is directly tied to exchange rate. So if your exchange rate fluctuates, every time it fluctuates, it affects the price. It doesn't matter whether it is reflecting in the general public, but every time that the dollar fluctuates with the naira, the cost of generating power goes up. And of course, if it fluctuates down, the cost goes down. So that cost is there. The system is taking the cost, but the system can only take the cost for so long because the generation companies want to pass it on to the distribution companies who want to pass it on to the transmission companies. And at the end of the day, you know, somebody that is fatherless ends up becoming government picking. So there is an amount of cost that is extra at the moment. And that cost, it is what is behind the thinking and the talk that the power tariffs will go up. But the power tariffs in terms of production has gone up. Okay. But somebody is taking the cost. Okay, now let me bring in a little economics here. Now, if that is how the cost is calculated, once the generation is increased and then all of these costs that go into running a business in Nigeria goes down, then the GDP rises, and then that helps currency, the strength of our currency. Can there be a ripple effect on the cost of the tariff? Oh, probably, because it's about bulk production. So it's like the larger you produce, the cheaper the unit cost. Right. So with the bigger power plant, so if you look at it, one of the most expensive means of production is actually your kerosene lamp in terms of costs, efficiency is the kerosene lamp. But the person who's using the kerosene lamp doesn't actually know that because they are putting in maybe 15 naira or whatever to buy the kerosene. Right. They are looking at the unit cost, not looking at the amount of energy that it produces vis-a-vis the cost. So you cannot compare that with somebody that is using a 5 kV generator, for example, because it powers so many things, the light, the AC, whatever it powers. And in the same vein, you cannot compare that to a 1 megawatt power plant. So the bigger the plant, you understand, the bigger the cost of production. And when the distribution companies are able to estimate production, they're able to estimate what they can sell. They can plan further and discount the cost based on expected revenue over a certain range of time. Incidentally, that was one of the parameters with which the privatization took place and which there were failings here and there that allowed that not to be able to take place. So yes, technically, once there's greater power production, the regulator and stakeholders in the industry need to sit down and work out ways for it to be cheaper. So yes, it can be cheaper. All right, Olabode Sowunmi, this all sounds like a fairy tale. Let's wait and see once the phases are completed how this can help boost the economy and of course ease doing business in Nigeria. Thank you very much for coming on Newsnight.